So to begin, each of our presenters will introduce themselves, and then following introductions, each of them will take the virtual stage and share some of their work with us. So the first person I'll ask to introduce themselves is Dan. Dan, would you like to start?
I'm a Samoan poet from American Samoa and a painter. It's an honor to be here with you, Winoka, and to share work for Museum of Contemporary Native Art. And it's an honor to be here with Chantal Spitz, who is one of our most revered writers of the Pacific Islands. I think it's a very rare occasion that we can have the honor to share space with Chantal. And so it's very moving for me to be here with Chantal and with No'u Revilla as well. But I guess I'm supposed to be introducing myself. I'm a writer and a poet, and I'll be reading from my book, Coconut Milk, which is a book of poetry. I have some artwork in the Exposures exhibition as well. And I live in upstate New York, which is why I have a sweater on.
Thank you, Dan. Let's go with No'u. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Waipunalau ki aloha ya kākou. My name is No'u Revilla. I am an ʻŌiwi poet, performer, and educator. I was born on the island of Maui, but I currently live in Palolo Valley on the island of Oahu. And today I am wearing a black jumpsuit with a yellow wrap. I have long black hair, which is up in a bun, and I am wearing eyeglasses and a pair of earrings with a water design. And I am also very honored and humbled to be here with Chantal Spitz and Dan Taulapapa McMullin. These two creatives and makers and brilliant thinkers have been the people I've read and looked up to as I learned more and more of the literature of Oceania, and it's a pleasure to be here. Mahalo Winoka for organizing this event for us.
Thank you, No'u. Chantal, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, so I'm a Tahitian writer, the first Tahitian novelist to be published. My first novel was published in 1991 and translated in English by Jean Anderson. And I will read two pieces from my novel in English. I was a school teacher for 27 years and then I retired. I'm the mother of three boys and the grandmother of 6 grandchildren. Yes, and I live on a remote island in the lagoon of Huahine, which is the south leeward islands from the archipelago of society, in which you have Tahiti, Moorea, and the Leeward Islands. And I'm very honored to be part of this session. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Chantal. Thank you to everyone, for participating in this. It's such an honor to have all of you on the screen. I wish this was in person so I could meet you, No'u and Chantal, in person. That would be great. So to get started, each of our poets will have about 15 minutes to share some of their work. And then if you would like, you may discuss your work a little bit more, share some context, it's truly up to you. But I figured that we, have the same sequence with Dan going first and then No'u and then Chantal. But again, feel free to, do this any way you would like.
Okay, well, I guess I'm going first. I'm going to first try to share a screen for a moment to show the painting that I am exhibiting in the exposure show. I haven't done this before, so hopefully I do this correctly. Okay, it's not working, so I won't do that. But the painting that it's because I don't know how to. Oh, is that my, it's showing? I don't know
Yes.
how. Okay.
That's me, Dan.
So this is a painting I showed I'm showing in the exposure show. And it's a mixed media print with acrylic paint. And Chantal will recognize Henri Hiro.
Henri Hiro, yeah.
Who, I don't know how well you knew Henri Hiro. He may have been a generation before you, but I know you were both very involved in the anti-nuclear movement in Tahiti at the time that the French government was conducting nuclear tests in the islands of French Polynesia. For myself, coming from American Samoa, which is a territorial island, Henri Hiro was a very strong figure for me as a poet. And I even attempted to translate some of his poetries from French into English, which I'm not sure they're very good translations, but they were amazing poems that he wrote. And he was, for me, he was a perfect blend of poetry and politics, and someone who sort of, as Chantal did, with their life and with their writing, stepped into the public space at a time when it was very difficult to do that in French Polynesia. And this is a photo that I sort of put some color on. It was from an old black and white photo from a newspaper. And he's blowing a conch shell, which is a traditional way of creating sacred space. And he's leading one of the first anti-nuclear protests in Pape'ete. The figures in the middle of the painting are women from Bikini Island. And this is, they're being relocated. This is from a photograph that was part of a series of photographs and films that were created by the US Navy to create the impression that the Bikini Islanders were voluntarily leaving their homeland. And, but of course they were not. And so this is them actually leaving Bikini Island, to which they've never returned. So these women that you see in the photograph never returned to their home island, where their families had lived for thousands of years. And then the figure at the bottom of the painting is from a cake that Admiral Blandy, who was in charge of the American nuclear tests in the Pacific Islands, had made to celebrate the atomic tests that the Americans were conducting. And of course, he got a lot of flack for this cake. I don't know how to return. Okay, here we are again. So I'll just read a poem. My work lately has dealt with appropriation of culture, but also with the idea of collage and looking at images and texts about the Pacific Islands. The ways that I made a film called 100 Tikis, which was, that's how I actually met Chantal. It showed in Pape'ete at the FIFO Festival, which is Pacific Islands Documentary Festival that takes place every year in Pape'ete in Tahiti. And I remember I just got there and I was walking down the beach and I saw this Tahitian woman sitting at a table having breakfast. And I said, if I meet anyone, I have to meet this woman. So I'm just gonna go up. And it was dawn. And I said, hi, can I join you? And she said, sure. And I said, well, my name's Dan. She says, my name's Chantal. I said, are you Chantal Spitz? And then we had breakfast every morning while I was there. And, in that film that I showed in Pape'ete, at that time at the FIFA Film Festival, I took all these clips of various Hollywood movies, and I created a sort of scenario of trying to find out is there any truth in these films, which were all, I mean, half of them were not even played by, most of them were not, were Pacific Islanders, not have been played by Pacific Islanders. And that's still often the case in Pacific Islander films. But I was looking at text and images, and that's still kind of the concern of my work. And the work in my work in appropriation began with this poem, which I'll read now. It's called Tiki Manifesto, and it was it's in my book, Coconut Milk, my book of poems. Tiki Manifesto. Tiki mug, my face, my mother's face, my father's face, my sister's face. Tiki mug, wherever white beachcombers and tiki bars drinking zombie cocktails from tiki mugs, the undead, the tiki people. My mother's face, my father's face, the black, brown, and ugly that make customers feel white and beautiful. Tiki mugs, tiki ashtrays, tiki trash cans, tiki kitsch cultures, tiki bars in Los Angeles, a tiki porn theater, tiki stores, tiki conventions, a white guy named Kukulele singing an Ooga Booga fake Hawaiian. Makes me yearn to hear a true Kanaka maoli like Kaumaki'iwa Kanaka Ole. Sing, chant, move her hands. The antidote to tiki bar people who don't listen because tiki don't speak any language, do they? Tiki bars in LA, in Tokyo, in the lands of tiki, Honolulu, Pape'ete, wherever tourists need a background of black skin, brown skin, ugly faces to feel land of the free, expensive, rich, on vacation, hardworking, with a background of wallpaper, tiki lazy people wallpaper, made from our skins, our faces, our ancestors, our blood. And I'm here in Los Angeles, or anywhere here in the so-called West, which is everywhere. And here we are, tiki mug people, my mother's face, my father's face, my sister's face. Can I remind us that tiki, umui call ti'e and ti'i. Some call ki'i, some call ti'i. That tiki was beautiful. Jutting eyebrows, thick lips, wide nose, brown skin, in some islands, black skin, in some islands, brown, black, deep, thick thighs, jutting eyebrow, thick lips, wide nostrils, breathing, lifting the sky over Samoa, lifting the sky over Tonga, lifting the sky over Viti, lifting the sky over Rapa Nui, lifting the sky over Tahiti, lifting the sky over Hawaii, lifting the sky over Aotearoa, and looking to paying respects to Papua, to the Chamorro, to Vanuatu, to Kiribati, lifting the 10 heavens above MoCNA, not your Pacific, not your Disney, but our MoCNA. And now in tiki bars, Chilean soldiers have drinks from tiki mugs after shooting down Rapa Nui protesters in Rapa Nui. Not Easter Island, not Isla de Pascua, but Rapa Nui, whose entire population was kidnapped and sold in slavery to South American mines in the 19th century, and whose survivors are shot on the streets of their lands in Rapa Nui today. And American police drink Mai Tais in Honolulu bars from tiki mugs while native Hawaiian people live homeless on the beaches. And Indonesian settlers drink from tiki mugs in West Papua, where 500,000 Papuans have been killed, seeking freedom after being sold down the river by President Kennedy so he could build some mines for his rich, cultivated, humanitarian friends. And French tourists drink from tiki mugs in Nouvelle-Calédonie and Polynésie Française, while native people are where? Where are we? In the wallpaper, on the mugs. And, that's my Tiki Manifesto. I don't know where I am on time, so I'll probably just stop there.
Thank you, Dan. If you would like, you have another 5 minutes.
Another 5 minutes? Okay, well, I suppose I should read another poem.
We would love to hear more.
I'll read a poem also for my book, Coconut Milk. I should stop plugging it. I'll read a poem about my childhood. It's called Fafina Poem number 2. I grew up in well, like a lot of families from American Samoa, like a lot of indigenous families, just about all the men in my father's generation fought in the US military. It's a very bizarre fact. Not very many Americans know this. And I think it's also true for French Polynesia, that Native peoples serve in the US military way out of proportion to their numbers compared to other populations. And I think this is also true of Polynesians, French Polynesia serving in the French military. It's just, I think, part of our culture of contributing. And it's a very bizarre fact that although we are in Hawaii and American Samoa and throughout indigenous Pacific Islands in America, kept in a colonial position by the military and the police, we ourselves often serve in the militaries. But anyway, my father went to Vietnam and my mother took us back to Samoa. And it was kind of the golden part of my childhood. And so I wrote this poem about that part. I first knew the art of painting by the smell of o'a, juice of the blood tree, bright orange, in white lacquered tin bowls nailed to the bark, filled with color and the scent of o'a. Down the path through the rainforest to great grandma and grandma's fale, fa'asapa, and sisini. One doesn't forget the smell of o'a or coconut oil on old ladies' arms, walking on their legs to massage them. Sapa as thin and dark and hard as a foul hibiscus tree, delicate in her gentleness, 100 years old. She took her opeti board and brushed on songa to keep the bark cloth from sticking. Now, working in oil paints, the smell of the oils is pungent to remind me of fresh o'a and songa. Sesepeni, my grandmother, stout and white-haired, ironed with a flat iron on a small coal brazier, sewed embroidery on pillow slips, balunga patterns, Bibles and hibiscus flowers, proverbs in Samoan and Gothic letters. There is a day that never ends, a small child and two old women. Now I'm an old one. I need someone to walk on my legs and rub my body with coconut oil. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dan.
Good then.
No'u, would you like to go next?
Dan, that image of walking under legs to massage them, in that poem you just read, it was just so beautiful, and it reminds me of my wife, because she is the one to massage her grandmother's legs and her mother's legs, and it's such an intimate thing to do, to the ways we take care of our kupuna, that kind of intimacy. Mahalo for sharing that. So my name is No'u Revilla, and I wanted to read just 2 poems today. In Hawaii, we are entering makahiki season, which for my lahui is meant to be a time of peace, a time of harvest, and a time of reflection. And for those of you who have been following the news, Hawaii is indeed in a time of reflection, because our waters are being poisoned with jet fuel. And water protectors here on the island of Oahu, where I live, are energizing a decades-long fight to defuel and decommission Red Hill bulk fuel storage facility, which is overseen by the US Navy. The US Navy is responsible for this water crisis here on Oahu. Single-lined, corrosive, 80-year-old underground storage tanks that can hold as much as 250 million gallons of jet fuel just 100 feet above Halawa's aquifer. These tanks are responsible for this water crisis. And these aging tanks have a long and dangerous history of leaking, a history that goes hand in hand with Hawaii's history of militarization, occupation, and extractive capitalism. But today, in the spirit of makahiki, I wanted to share poems that call on water in a different way, that call on different mo'olelo of vai, and vai in my language is our word for water, which is our source, right? Ola I ka vai. So I wanted to share 2 poems. One poem is by my mentor, Haunani K. Trask, and she unfortunately left us this past summer and passed on from our world. But If you walk around Hawaii throughout this Pae'aina and you bring up Haunani's name to any ʻŌiwi, especially ʻŌiwi wahine, she is alive and here and present in our na'au. And I wanted to share a poem from her collection, Light in the Crevice Never Seen. And this poem is entitled When the Rain Comes. And I like to bring this poem into my first day of classes when I teach at UH Manoa. And I like to bring them on the first day of my creative writing classes as a kind of question, he nino, to my students. What is this poem challenging us to do in terms of our creative practice, in terms of coming to a writing community and committing to that kind of vulnerability, to that kind of sharing, to that kind of truth we must bring to storytelling? What is this poem asking us to do through water, specifically through rain? When the Rain Comes by Haunani K. Trask. When the rain comes, put down your glass, leave the flowers and go into the marsh. Let her winds find you and the great gray clouds roll down around you. Let the smoke fill up your eyes and the mist wet your breasts. Then fling off your last piece of colored cloth so that she may see and take you. And whenever we read that poem as a class, on the first day when I'm learning my haumana, when my haumana are learning me as writers, as poets, the conversation that follows is so beautiful because one, it energizes this mo'oku auhau, this literary genealogy that I am a part of because Haunani was my mentor, Haunani who led this lahui with her scholarship, with her activism, with her poetry. And we talk about what does it mean? What is this challenge to leave what you're doing and go out and let the rain take you, to strip yourself and let this rain of hei'a, let this mist take you. What does that kind of trust mean in relation to building a community of writers, especially a community of Indigenous writers? What does it mean to trust each other with the stories we're carrying? And I thank Haunani every day for this poem because I think it's such an ʻŌiwi way to enter the kinds of questions and the kinds of practices you engage as Indigenous poets. So that is my mahalo and my shout out to Haunani K. Trask. And I'd like to end my reading with my own poem. And Wanoka, are you able to share screen? Did you get my poem?
I did not get it, but I can see if I'm able to share it quickly.
Thank you. Mahalo. So the reason I want to share this poem, it's coming from my manuscript, which will be published with Milkweed Editions in fall 2022. I had the pleasure of being a winner of the 2021 National Poetry Series, and my collection of poems, Ask the Brindled, was selected by Rick Barrett, the incredible Rick Barrett. And the poem that I'm going to share with you is entitled Adze Shaped Rain. So I'm following my mentor, Haunani K. Trask. I'm going to also share a rain poem with you to continue what Indigenous poems about water do, the different things, the different ways we talk about our wai, Yeah. And here in Hawaii, every single rain has a name. And I'm sure that's true throughout Indigenous communities in Oceania. Here in Palolo, for example, where I live, the rain that you may be hearing outside from my cottage is called Lililehua. All of our rains have names. And so the poem that I'm going to share with you right now is about a rain in Kalihi and how that name came to be. And I wanted to share my screen with you because it's a contrapuntal. So there are multiple voices in this poem, and there is English, as you can see, but there's also Mai Olelo Makuahine in this poem, which is taken from the story about Kalihi's rain name. So this is adze-shaped rain. Into a cave in Kalihi, two lovers vanished, their bodies pressed against each other. No ka ho'opo ana I ke koena o ke koi, o nā wahi I ke kihapai. They vanished. A'ole I kanu ia. To seed instead of starve, be soil craving water. Two lovers vanished inside a cave in Kalihi. Then the rain came to consummate the not yet planted permission, not yet planted to stay, not yet planted. In Kalihi, lovers keep sleeping as the rain falls sideways, days, nights. Na wahi I koi, na wahi I koi, na wahi I koi. Long before I was born, my kupuna counted 3 lovers instead of 2. This work of sharpening heads, the rain believing the ground, believing the seed, pressing deep, a single finger pointing the shape of po'o, lipi, lipi. Days, nights not yet planted. In Kalihi, another story of desire. Mahalo nui loa, ola I ka wai.
Thank you so much, No'u. It's always just so powerful to hear the poets, when they're sharing their words, through their own voice, it's just made me cry a little bit. Chantal, would you like to go next?
Yes. I will read the 2 pieces from my first novel. And when I wrote this novel, it was not supposed to be a novel. I was a little bit more than 30 years old, and I was wondering what I would leave to my sons. And I just realized that I did not have anything to leave them because I did not know anything. So I thought maybe I can write our history, the history, the way we look at the history and the way we feel the history went, because we don't have many memories in our country. Or we have the memories of the white people who came, but our own memories, we don't have really. I talk about the memories of the history. the history from when the white people came. And we are taught that we were very, very pleased and very grateful to be French. First to be even Christianized and then to be colonized. And somehow in my mind, I said, oh no, it cannot be like this, because today we are not so happy, so it cannot be like this. And I thought, okay, I will write this for my sons so they can have an idea of what I feel about all this. And so I wrote this this story. And my older sister, who loved to go in my things, so she found my notebook and she said, oh, I read your book. And I said, okay, but I did not finish, so you have to give me back. And she said, no, not the book you're reading, the book you wrote. And I said, come on, I did not write a book. She said, oh yes, sure. So she went in my bag and she grabbed my notebook and she said, this one. I said, oh, come on, it's not a book, it's just a story for my kids. And she said, oh, you should publish it, it's really good. And I said, oh, it was in 1991. And I told him, come on, you know, Tahitian don't publish. And she said, oh, there is the French series that it was, oh, I cannot remember the name of the series, but it's novel for 13-year-old or 80-year-old people. So it was really, how do you say, love stories, you know, but just like telenovelas. And I said, okay, yes, there is. And she took the notebook and she gave it to the first girlfriend. Oh, it's my story. So she cried. And the second one, oh, it's my story. Everybody cried. And then my sisters and my friends found a publisher. And this story became the first novel written by an indigenous Tahitian in French language. And it was during the French nuclear testing. So it was very, very, very controversial because, of course, one of the major subjects in the novel is the nuclear testing. And so I got many problems with this book. But 30 years after, it's really a must-read, and they learn it in schools, in high schools, and at the university. And it has been translated in English. And so, yes, that's the story of this novel. And I come on what you said, No'u, about indigenous writers. So in 2001, Flora de Vatin, who is a great writer too, so that we should create an association with indigenous writers who had published, and we were 7 at this time in 2001. And so we founded this this association, and it's an association with only indigenous writers. We don't accept anyone else, just indigenous writers. Because at this time in French occupied Polynesia, the big question of the French university teachers was, does it exist, a Tahitian literature? And we were just fed up about on this question, and we said, yes, okay, we will show that there is a Tahitian literature. But we decided that we would define ourselves what is Tahitian literature, not the way Western people say, the way we define the Tahitian literature in every language of the country, in poetry, orero, everything. And we decided to publish one journal. And from 2001, we just published in November, we just published the number 25 of our review. So now we have young writers who join us, and we say, if you just write one piece and you sign it, so you are an author. We don't need to have a novel published or a book or 10 books. You have one piece, you write one piece, you sign it, you publish it, you are an author. So, and I just left the presidents, you say presidents of the association last year. Now it's a young woman who is president now. Flora de Vatin has been the first president for 10 years. I was the secretary. And then the 10 years after I was the president, and now I'm off because we have to transmit everything to young generation. So yes, so I will read my 2 pieces of my novel. Of course, it was written in French language and translated by Jean Anderson, who was a teacher at Wellington University in Te Aotearoa, and she is now retired. So, music without words. They are gone, the ones who were with me in childhood, leaving their mark in my memory. A dream from the depths of the ages, traveled through the time without quite dying out. They are gone, taking with them what I used to be. Gestures of everyday things, silences of the good times, serenity of their knowledge of the world. There remains only the pale echo of a music without words. They are gone. I have learned other words, rising up from another world. I have learned the words of another people. I have embraced their ideas, trembled for their struggles. I have sung words that were not for my music. The years are gone in turn, a long procession of days and nights spent in forgetting the heart's ambitions. The years are gone in a life that conforms with the logic of men, the mind's fever to drown the desert of the soul, the fire of action to forget the dreamed song. Images returning after so many years, flashes of light in the darkness of my memory, recalls to the surface of my soul. Bubbles rising to disturb the perfect order of social esteem. A shooting pain awakens the dream, pointless, and cumbersome legacy of those who were with me in childhood. O Lord of heaven, how terrible it is to leave to my sons the legacy of another people, because I could not find the courage to keep trace to the world of my fathers. This is the first piece. And the second piece from the same novel. All the children dead before they died, in their bodies, the memory of hunger, in their heart, the absence of love, in the name of love. All those children dead before they died, in their eyes, humanity's indifference, in their hands, the emptiness of the world, in the name of love. All those women born for love, taking with them in death their children's tears, their husband's brutality, in the name of love. All those lives ended before they began, shattered by human wars, ashes beneath the nuclear rage, in the name of love. All those burned lands, all those violated oceans, all those despised men, all those shattered women, all those crushed children, in the name of love. O Lord God in heaven, did we invite you so that inside our churches, in the name of love, we might atone for man's dishonor by swallowing every Sunday a piece of your son's body? O Lord God in heaven, did you invent us to entertain your boredom in the name of love, alone in the eternity of space? O Lord God in heaven, is mankind just some joke in the name of love? It's not very happy, I know, but I don't think Oceanian people history is very happy. And when I read the work of Indigenous Oceanian writers, I can read the same story, the same pain, and also the same hope that tomorrow will be a better day. And I'm an old woman now, and I hope I can live 20 years more, maybe. And my only goal for the remaining time I have to live is to question the history, question the official history, because we were lied to. And it's time for us, for our children, our grandchildren, and all the coming generations to know the history and to go through all those pains. So tomorrow we can be just standing on our feet on our land. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chantal. I think the words that resonated with me is that when you said that the same pain and the same story, I think that resonates with all Indigenous people, you know, of how we all have similar pain and similar stories to share and to tell. And so I just wanted to emphasize that because it it's such you know, it's not that simple to say, and, you know, but I think that just kind of encompasses, you know, the stories that we share has such strength and such, and I'm only saying this as a writer myself, and, you know, and as a person that does story work with youth, that, you know, that stories are powerful. Stories mean so much, you know, and in a way, you know, we give ourselves as writers too when we share those stories with the public and with others. But thank you so much. Thank you, No'u. Thank you, Dan. I truly appreciate being in front of so many, such amazing artists, you know, poets, educators, leaders. You know, it means a lot. A couple of comments that have come in are, thank you for your words and your paintings. Beautiful. Standing on our feet, on our land, and painful but beautiful, but thank you. Before we end, I wanted to ask a question of No'u, because you have a poem in exposure called For Kathy. And I was wondering if you could share a little bit more about the meaning behind that poem in relation to the exhibition or in relation to you. But I just wanted to know a little bit more.
Thank you, Anoka, for that question, and mahalo, Chantal, for ripping my guts out and putting them back in. I very linked to what Chantal was writing about and reading about. Climate change is a thing, and the effects of nuclear testing in Oceania is real. And Kathy Jetno-Kitchener is a climate justice warrior. She is a beloved poet here in Oceania, a friend of mine, and Basket was written for Kathy when her first collection of poems came out through the University of Arizona, through their Suntrack series. And she came here to Hawaii to have a book launch, and some of us wrote poems for her to celebrate her book. And if you've read her collection, it constellates around the metaphor of a basket. And Kathy Jetno-Kitchener is a Marshallese poet. So a lot of her work comes from her culture, from what her kupuna, from what her ancestors have passed down to her in the Marshalls. And it's a lovely, absolutely lovely, necessary collection, not just for Indigenous people in Oceania, but for anyone. And yes, Joy. I see Joy Enomoto just getting active over there. Right on. What's up, sister? Yes, she is the first published Marshallese poet. And the metaphor of a basket to me was something that I wanted to uplift in my poem to her. So that's what I wrote. And I think one thing that I really wanted to highlight in the poem is that, you know, we are sacred. We are still sacred, no matter no matter how many bombs are dropped, no matter how you poison our waters, no matter how much you brainwash our children to think that our Indigenous languages, our dances, our weaving, the way we take care of each other, the way we love is savage. No matter how many lies that Chantal spoke to, no matter how many lies they tell, we are still sacred, we are still here, and we are still coming. And we are coming to take care of each other. And work by Dan, by Chantal, by Kathy by the Indigenous poets and artists active in Oceania. That is the work I cherish.